Hi everybody, it's Carl here from Istanbul Mehmet Symbols Artist Relations. Today we'll be talking with Kurt Dahl from Canada, who is one of our artists. He's a phenomenal drummer and he is also a music lawyer as well. So this is going to be a really great interview. We can get some insight into the legal world, which I'm sure we're all going to be dealing with moving forward out of COVID-19. And I'm sure you've already been having these dealings before now, just in the music business in general. So we're just going to wait to see if he pops on right now. We've got FMZ Sound there, our guys from Canada, our distributors. So if you have any questions for Kurt, please drop them in the comments or add it on the question tab right here. He is going to be answering everything from music publishing, music writing, songwriting, anything to do with the industry, whether it's contracts for live music. So, and here we have him right in. So let's see if we can add him right now. Here we go. Let's see if we can connect. Kurt!
Hey Carl, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. And it's a bit of a disclaimer. This is the first time we've ever actually spoken that's not via email. So this is exciting for me just to get to see the face,
Likewise, yeah.
But yeah, thank you for joining us. I know there's a lot of people excited to hear about this aspect of your playing career as well as the entertainment industry and the law behind it. So yeah, I mean, for the people who don't know who you are, do you want to give us a brief description of your background and what you do on a day-to-day basis and just in your general past?
Yeah, for sure. So, I've been lucky enough to have played rock and roll for most of my life, and I've played in a band called One Bad Son here in Canada, and we've been together for 16 years now. We've toured the world. We've had #1 songs and a handful of top 5 songs throughout Canada. We've done some amazing things over the years. We've toured arenas with like Def Leppard and Judas Priest and that sort of thing. And just last year we opened for the Rolling Stones, which was probably a career highlight. And,
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's like we've done everything that a rock and roll band can do, really. And it's been a hell of a journey, right? 16 years and we're still going strong. Yeah. So, and then somewhere along the way, I became an entertainment lawyer, and, I just feel super lucky, that I've got 2 careers that I'm super passionate about, and I get to help other musicians, make the most of their careers and not sign bad deals, and that happens. I mean, that's kind of what got me into this in the first place, I think, is just reading. I love reading rock and roll biographies. That's all I read for my teens and my 20s, and I feel a common thread in so many of these rock and roll biographies is that my idols were, screwed over by a bad contract, and so, yeah, so I realized one day that I should be the guy that helps out musicians help avoid doing that and help them make the most of their careers,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sad, but as you say, it's a very, very common thread that seems to happen. The music industry is a fickle beast, and we get taken advantage of. So because it's generally a creative type with the record label who's very much business type. So yeah. I hope we can delve in a bit further with that today, because I know that it's a lot of people, especially now going forward into the touring world again, once the world opens up. I mean, that's gonna create some interesting situations. I mean, one question that I was thinking of is when we go back to touring,
yeah,
how's that going to work in respect of, I know from a lot of artists that I'm speaking to and people that I play with, there's questions about insurances, and are venues going to want to take the risk on? Are people going to want to take the risk on? And are the labels going to want to take the risk of where they might have been able to sell out a 50,000 seat stadium, they may only get 20,000 to something, if you're looking at U2, how do you think that's going to affect, us as players, and how's that going to affect you as a music lawyer? Are you having to prepare now for for contracts that are going to be quite different?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, and you're right. I mean, the whole industry, whatever emerges on the other side of this is going to be different, you know.
Yeah.
And that's, we can't expect like sort of like how long until it goes back to normal. Like there's not going to be that normal, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're gonna see it in the contracts, like not so much like me being involved as a lawyer, those kind of contracts, but
Right.
but the contracts, for example, for my band, our booking agent, has their standard contract that they have the festival sign and the venue sign.
Yeah.
That standard deal that you're getting from agents or from promoters, there's going to be some new clauses in there.
Yeah.
Because the question, who's responsible if you go to a show, let's say your example of U2, instead of playing the 50,000, they're playing the 20,000, but someone gets sick, that who's responsible? I can guarantee it's not going to be the band. The band's not going to be responsible.
Right.
At least they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because they're not the one, they can't control what's happening in the aisles and in the in the venue. So I think there's gonna be some sort of the venue is gonna be, well, actually I don't know how it's gonna shake out, but
yeah, I mean, it's a big.
I imagine if you go to that concert and you get COVID, I don't think you have any recourse, is my guess. But we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, what a crazy time we're in right now.
Oh man, it's so crazy, and I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be a new normal. It's not going to be the normal that we know. It's going to be something different, and that's going to have to be the normal. Whether it's less people in the audience and but well, I'm sure we'll all be there for the ride. Whenever I'm sure everyone's excited to get out back on the road. So with your band, One Bad Son, how's that process going? How did that affect any touring schedules at all? Or
yeah, I mean, we had a bunch of summer festivals booked. I mean, that's my favorite time of the year. Really, is doing all the big festivals and the big stages. And weather's great here in Canada in the summer. Right. Not so great the rest of the year, as you probably know. So that kind of we just had to cancel a bunch of shows. That was a real bummer. I mean, I think we were hit. There's all right, Grand Prairie represent.
There you go.
Dean, how you doing, buddy? I think we weren't hit as hard as some bands. Like some bands just launched a big album and they were going to do like a world tour or even just the Canadian tour, and they had 50, 60, 80 dates booked and they had to cancel them all. That wasn't us. I mean, right now we're sort of in a down period, just writing songs. We all have families right now we're hanging out with, so it didn't hit us as hard as it hit some bands.
Yeah.
I could only imagine if this had hit, like, say, right when we were in 2012, when we released our big breakthrough album. If that had just started to break through and then had something like this hit, I mean, our career would have been forever changed. We may not have been able to capitalize on all those breakthrough moments that we had. So,
yeah, I
mean, I just feel for so many of my friends and musicians out there that, for a lot of people, this is their only source of income, right? Going out there and touring. Yeah. And that's gone from like here to like zero. And I really feel it's devastating on the industry,
Yeah. If you had to deal with anything law-wise with your own band, of having to sort contracts and be like, hey, look, this is what's happening, how's that affected your entertainment lawyer side?
Yeah, I mean, the legal practice has been kind of crazy. It's stayed really busy. And a lot of it's like, okay, now how are we going to figure out this release schedule? Like, say for some of my bigger clients, they had a big album plan for like September this year.
Right.
So it's like, me discussing with the label and the artist, like, how are we going to best deal with this shitstorm that is COVID, right? And, so a lot of it's postponing releases, or with some clients, like some clients are festivals and they're like, well, we're canceled for this year, but can we sort of rebook the bands for 2021?
Yeah.
And then what happens if, it has to be canceled again in 2021? Like, who knows how long this thing's going to stay around?
Exactly.
So it's sort of like, just maneuvering, trying to make everyone make the most of a really crappy situation,
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad you're still busy and you're still working, and it must be a hectic time for yourself, not just to be at home, but to be, this is a new territory for a lot of us. The last pandemic that hit many, many years ago, there wasn't this type of a touring, the big touring scene that we now know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad you're staying busy. And with talks on your band and your writing, we actually did have a question from Big Brown Guy 7 who was asking, how is the album coming along, and do you have a release date?
Nice. The writing is, I mean, COVID has really thrown off our writing plan because, I mean, our singer lives about 7 hours away. So,
Wow.
We've tried to do like, we all write on our own and send each other, iPhone recordings.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do this to a certain extent, like what you and I are doing. But for a big, loud rock band, the sound doesn't work too well, and, I'm a loud drummer, so it's like on the phone, it just doesn't really work. So, so I mean, yeah, the songs are still coming along. I think we're going to do like some songwriting in person in like a month. And,
Nice.
But yeah, it's like, and I've heard this from a lot of clients of mine and friends of mine that are also, obviously musicians and songwriters. I think some people think that because of COVID, we have all this time to just write all the greatest songs of our lives, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. I mean, you sort of strike when inspiration strikes. And sometimes, I mean, in COVID, during these times, I mean, it's not like, to me, it's not like the greatest fertile grounds for writing the best songs of your life.
Like, I think you need that. I was talking to somebody about this the other day as well, and it was, you need that outside stimulation, and to be just kind of confined just to yourself or with your family. As much as songs might be written about your family in the long run, you need that outside aspect to mix with other people, I think, to write a great song. And I think it helps. And as you say, writing over a camera is not the same, and especially in a big rock band, where I'm sure do you write a lot of the songs in the room together?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. We sort of, like, that's how I've always been, is sort of, like almost like a Chili Peppers model, where it's like we're jamming, and we get some sort of riff, and I throw on a beat, and then we start throwing ideas out lyrically, kind of like, and so it's very collaborative, and you can't really, it's not like a Bob Dylan model where he brings the song in complete and then has his bandmates sort of play it.
Yeah.
It's very much, you got to be there. You got to feel those energy, the molecules bouncing off the walls. Like, that's how we write songs, and you're right. You can't fake that over Zoom,
Yeah, and the lag doesn't help either.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. So for the people who've just joined, we're here with Kurt Dahl. He's a drummer with One Bad Son and many other artists in Canada, and he's also an entertainment lawyer. So we're going to be talking about many different aspects of the industry. Now, one thing that, when we started about this, I was checking out your website, and you've got some amazing blogs on there with some very, very invaluable information. And one of the ones was regarding about the two sides of songwriting and the legalities behind that. You've got, I believe it's the master split and the publishing split, and you can.
Right.
So I know that myself and many other artists out there really struggle with that. And to be honest, I think some of the industry struggles with that. Labels even get it wrong still to this day, which is kind of messed up. But it'd be nice to hear from yourself to explain exactly what we should expect when we're dealing with those two sides, and what we can expect as a songwriter and or just as a drummer, and do you get a piece of the pie or do you not,
Yeah. And it's interesting, the website is really, like, it started with such humble beginnings, basically what I found is, no one was writing articles about these topics, so I had these questions like, who owns the master recording? What copyrights are on a recording? What are the revenue streams from each of those copyrights? Like, I couldn't find the answers to these things, so I thought, well, hell, if no one's going to write these articles, I'll do it, right? And it took a lot of time, in the early days, just doing the research and writing these articles, because you don't want to F them up because they're on the internet. So I wrote, or like, is your producer a songwriter? Like, should you give your producer songwriting points? If the producer's saying, hey, this chorus isn't that good, let's change it from an A minor to a sharp, or like, is that songwriting? And I couldn't find these answers, so I wrote these articles, and again, started off very humble beginnings. No one was reading the website, the articles, And then I just kept working on them, and every week, like the readership went up, and now I'm blown away by how many people read the articles. They're sort of, and that's how I get discovered by a lot of these like news agencies or whatever.
Yeah.
If you search like, is my producer a co-writer, my website comes up first, which is like, it kind of blows my mind because
Right.
I'm no like I'm no internet search expert or whatever. I mean, but yeah, so it's really the article sort of took a life of their own, and then obviously I spent a lot of time writing, commenting, and giving people answers they have to their questions, right?
Yeah.
So it's the whole, sort of like the "if you build it, they will come" sort of thing,
Absolutely. Can you explain, just give a brief idea of the two copyrights that you explained, just a brief overview of what you explained in the blog, just for people who are watching right now?
Yeah. I think, and that's a common confused topic is, what copyrights are in the song. Typically there's two big ones. There's one in the recording itself, like the master recording, and there's one in the songwriting.
Yeah.
And that's the publishing, right? So that's every time your song's played on the radio or played at a baseball game or played in the mall, the songwriters should get paid in theory, right? And then on the master, so the master recording copyright, that's if you sell the song on iTunes for $1, whoever owns that master gets that $1. So usually it's record labels, sometimes it's the artists themselves, and that sort of thing, So I mean, I think a lot of my clients, a lot of musicians in general, are just kind of overwhelmed and confused by all the different copyrights and revenue streams out there.
Yeah.
And the industry is changing every day, as we see, right? It used to be, the record sales used to be this big thing, and now, of course, no one buys records. It's all just streaming and that sort of thing, right? So that's shifted the revenue model, etc.
Yeah, I think that actually leads us on to another question here from David B972. He has, it's kind of two questions in one, but you might have to explain a bit of this, but it says, how often do players get mechanicals, and should I be asking for them? So mechanical royalty. Yeah,
so mechanicals, like, it's a really often confused area as well. So, I mean, the idea is that every time a recording is reproduced. So in the old days, again, I was like actually pressed onto vinyl. I'm a vinyl guy.
Yeah.
Or pressed onto CD. I'm kind of a CD guy still, which is, a bit outdated, but, every time it's pressed or reproduced, whoever wrote the song, again, to go back to the songwriting topic, they got paid a certain mechanical royalty. So it's a mechanical reproduction of your song.
Okay.
And it's set by the statute. So I think it's 9.2 cents or something. So it goes to the writers. Now, I think the question is, should the asker of the question should performers get some of it? Is that the question?
Yeah. Should performers get something? Now, I know personally in the UK that I believe is standard, a performer gets a mechanical royalty just through the union. It's what's expected. But I don't know in the US. So
yeah, in the US they don't, and they're starting to change that, I believe. But so in the US, it just goes to the writers. That's it, right. Not the performers. So again, as drummers, a lot of times, I mean, I'm a songwriter in my band, so it doesn't apply. Yeah. But a lot of drummers aren't considered songwriters, which is a whole other discussion. I mean, right. Is John Bonham, should he be considered a songwriter on those great Zeppelin tracks? I mean, that drum beat on When the Levee Breaks, or the beat on Kashmir, I mean, isn't that songwriting? I mean, to me, no one else could do that, right? So right. Bonham or his estate should be getting songwriting, but he doesn't. It just goes to Page and Plant, Yeah. That's a whole other, that's like an hour long,
right.
Live stream. But anyways, right now, just performers don't get mechanicals. It's only the writers, So, But anyways, shout out.
I think one of the questions was, should I be asking for them as a performer, David says.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, you can sign up for neighboring rights, royalties. So just Google neighboring rights, whoever's watching. Yeah. And you can sign up. So as a performer, you will get paid from, sales and radio play, etc. So in that way, like again, to go with that example,
Yeah.
John Bonham's estate gets neighboring rights revenue from every time a Led Zeppelin song is played, but he wouldn't get the songwriting revenue. Yeah, so in Europe it's different. America, I just see someone commented there.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, author rights and performance rights.
I think America's. I mean, there's a bunch of performers that are trying to change this. And maybe it already is. I mean, I'm not an expert in U.S. Et cetera, law, but yeah, I think it's interesting. That whole line between performer and writer, and typically there's two different revenue streams. And bottom line is, if you're a performer on a record, make sure you're registered as a performer. Yeah. And then, I mean, again, that's sort of the $1 million question in the biz. Are you also a songwriter? If you're a drummer that's saying, hey, why don't we change the chorus to this, and the lyrics could be this. I mean, if you're contributing more than just a drum beat, maybe you're also a co-writer,
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's great. I think that's great information, because I think, often I think drummers are and many musicians are in a studio situation, and you're just recording, and people just come up with an idea like, oh, why don't we do this? And they maybe don't realize that they're writing part of the song, so
I always like to give examples from real bands that I love, right? So there's sort of like I mentioned at the beginning, there's like the Chili Pepper model where Chad Smith, killer drummer, all the songs sort of come from jams. So Chad Smith is an equal co-writer. And then somewhere in the middle is like the Rolling Stones. Speaking of, we came close to that. I was like 10 feet away from Mick Jagger. That's the closest I've ever got to him. I didn't get a chance to meet him, but I felt Keith Richards' energy from afar.
Right. I think everyone feels Keith Richards from afar.
I think it extended my life somehow, just by being around him.
Absolutely, he's got the fountain of youth right there.
But so there's the Stones. They're kind of in the middle of the spectrum. It's like Chili Peppers, Stones. Because in the Stones, there's two main writers, Keith and Mick, And then on the other end, the far end of the other side of the spectrum is like the Neil Young, Bob Dylan model, where they bring in songs totally written, and they have their band, perform the music. But the band doesn't get songwriting,
Right.
So it's sort of like I like to look at that spectrum, and as a band, you decide where you're at on that spectrum.
Yeah, I think in some respects, as long as everyone's pulling their weight in some way in the band, I feel like, because now that is the lion's share of the income, with that and touring, it's, unless you're the tour manager as well in the band, and I think it's only fair that you can, that if you want to keep a happy family, everything just makes sense to keep it even, unless someone is doing the lion's share of the work, and then obviously the songwriters the most, and then the next, what was that one? There's someone just commented there. I
think he's talking about how it's divided in Europe, I believe.
Right, okay.
But yeah, and you're right. I think like if it's sort of all for one for all, that sort of band, then equal splits make sense. But then you have those bands where it's like one guy or girl is doing all the work and it's their baby, and it just makes sense to. It wouldn't be fair to actually split it equally. It's So I mean, every situation is so different, because I've had bands where it's like, the bass. We'll pick on the bass player for a second. The bass player, doesn't do anything. They don't show up to rehearse. They don't help out on socials. They don't, whatever. They're just there to play and get a paycheck essentially. Yeah. Then if you give that person an equal split, everyone else becomes resentful, right? Because they're so it's, every band is different. I always say there's no two bands the same, and it's, you got to just sort of figure out whatever is best for your band, and then get a band agreement in place.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to the Rolling Stones, and how was that touring with them? How many dates did you do with them? And
just one. It was
okay.
I would have loved to do more, but they only had one Canadian date, and this was last year.
Yeah.
I think it was around like 70,000 people or something. It was outdoor show, the biggest show we've ever played, and my goal from the get-go was like, I just want to meet Keith, or Mick. I would take either.
Yeah.
Or Charlie, of course. Like Charlie,
of course, yeah. Like they're all that.
I mean, Charlie. Obviously, I'm a drummer first and foremost, but he was still probably ranked third. I wanted to meet Keith, Mick, and then Charlie. But yeah, I did everything I could to meet them, and the security was like CIA level security.
Oh, really?
And, you know, I'm in one of the opening acts. You know, they didn't give a shit. They're like, nope. And the funny thing, Keith's security guard, it was kind of a funny moment. I said, you know, I'm in one of the opening acts. You know, I'm a huge fan. I've listened to every Stones record. They changed my life. Could I just shake Keith's hand, just say thank you? And security guard was like, Keith has met everyone he needs to meet in this life. Which I thought was funny. You know, it's like,
that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand it. I was actually a friend of mine let slip the other day that his doctor is actually, when they go on the road, is Keith's doctor. And I'm like, no, that's just a golden ticket for marketing right there. You're Keith Richards' doctor.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll have whatever he's having.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And she said, apparently she said, I don't know. I check him before he goes on stage and he's fine. And he comes off stage and he's fine. Like nothing's happened.
Yeah, it's like you always wonder if he's got some sort of like vampire diet, you know.
Oh my God!
He gets entirely new blood every show or something.
Right. Oh man, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But so yeah, another thing that we were talking about was the producer. Is my producer a songwriter, and should I give him? You know, and I know a lot of people. It's different in many places in the world, but sometimes if you haven't paid the producer owns the master, and and vice versa. So tell us through some scenarios that you've dealt with, you know, because I know a lot of people are really interested in this. Yeah,
it's, you know, I feel like it's more and more of a sort of growing concern in terms of producers, right? Because I'm a rock and roll guy. That's what I know. That's what I love. So it's like, it's more straightforward in rock and roll. Like the producer isn't the one like writing all the music most of the time, right? But in pop and hip hop, which of course are like way bigger in terms of market share, the producer is often one like creating the music, creating the beat, right? And so then it's like, what sort of share of songwriting should that person get? Because the artist comes on, like, let's say you're, I don't know, Miley Cyrus, and you come in, producer lays down a beat for you, and you sing over top, and you write the lyrics, and you sing it, but you don't create the music. And maybe Miley's not a good example because she's a great musician too, but let's just pretend it's, music is created by someone else. You know, what songwriting should that producer get? And what we're seeing very common is that the producer gets half of the songwriting, because they're, you know, the typical split is 50% for music, 50% for lyrics, right? So a lot of times, and a lot of my pop clients are like, I got this beat made, I wrote the lyrics and sang my ass off on it. Do I have to give half the songwriting to this producer? And I say, you know, well, who wrote the music? And they say, well, the producer. And so, that's typically the rule, is half goes to the producer. Now, in a rock and roll setting, or in a different setting where it's like you're bringing the music in as a musician, and also the lyrics, that's what I'm used to, right, in the rock world. And so then the question is the producer, like, if they make a few suggestions here and there, is that songwriting? You know, if they say your chorus stinks, write a better chorus, that's not really that's not songwriting, right? But if they say your chorus stinks here, and they grab a guitar and like write it for you, the music, that is songwriting. So it's, as you can see, it's a very fine line. I always give it like, the test is like the guitar test. If the guitar comes, and this is in rock only, it doesn't really work in hip hop, I guess rock and country, but if the guitar comes out and the producer is playing it and suggesting things and changing things, that's often songwriting, you know? But if they say, you know, the chorus isn't that good, let's make that the verse and let's write a new chorus, I don't know if that's songwriting, you know? And it's sort of like this, you know it when you see it sort of thing. It's a
very gray area, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great analogy. You know, if the guitar comes out and chords are changed, then you're writing, you're changing the harmonic structure of the song, and I think that's a big thing. I think what we're used to with what was classed as the old school producer is someone sat at the back of the room going, "Oh, well, just do this and change that," and
they've got all the knobs in front of them, and they're just like they're just pressing buttons, you know.
Whereas now that's an engineer, you know, to a degree.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, your band, let's say your band goes in the studio and you know, you're all playing, and every instrument that is on the record is you, and you've created every part of it. To me, that's not a producer on the other side. To a degree, it's an engineer mixer. You know, they're mixing the sound and they're making what you're playing come through at the best quality you can do, you know. So yeah, it's tough. So well, let's move on. We've just spoken. I'll jump in here, but for the people who've just joined, we're with Kurt Dahl from Canada. He plays in band One Big Son. He's an entertainment lawyer as well. So if you've got any questions, please add them in the comments or pop them in on the question button below, and we'll try and get to them. But Kurt, let's jump in and tell me how you started playing the drums. Let's get to drums for a second.
Let's talk some drums. Yeah. You know, I was definitely a late bloomer when it came to music in general. I mean, so many of my friends and my contemporaries started when they were like 5 or even like 10, you know. For me, I didn't pick up the sticks until grade 12. So I was like 16, and, you know, everyone else had played instruments for a long time by that point. So I was way behind everyone. You know, and I picked up the sticks in grade 12 because I was just Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, like they changed my life. You know, the early 90s Seattle, like I still am a huge fan. And
it's a great time.
Oh yeah, just like what a great period, you know. And so picked up the drums, picked up the sticks, and I was horrible. You know, like I was horrible for like 2 years, you know. And I think that's sort of like the great thing about drums is, you know, you can sort of pick it up and teach yourself to some extent, like to some degree. Eventually I got lessons, but the first 5 years was just me. I bought the big Vic Firth studio cans.
Yeah.
And because they could, so basically what I did was I plugged them into my record player and put on, you know, David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, and put on Deep Purple, Machine Head, put on Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, put on Pearl Jam 10, all these records, and I just play along with them. And so instead of getting like some drum teacher, my teachers were my idols, you know. Right. And I was playing along with the big boys, you know, and it took a while to be able to play along to some of those records.
Yeah.
But at least I loved the journey. Like to me, nothing was better. I just play for hours and hours and hours, and I don't think you can do that as easily with other instruments, you know. And so that was it. I played along to records, and eventually, after again you put in your hours, like I definitely put in my 10,000 hours over the course of the journey, you know, and eventually I started to not suck, you know. And I just very much like a field player, like I just thrive off the energy of the crowd, and I'm very much like a high energy person, a high energy kid. I always was, you know. So drums were they just captured my attention, and you know, I'm a huge Keith Moon fan and John Bonham fan. So just over the top, you know, entertaining drums. Like to me, that's what really got me excited. And and then again, it's like with any story. I mean, you start as a nobody or without much skill. At least most of us don't start great. And then it's all the hours and the time and the effort put in when no one's watching that really make you a good performer, right?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. I mean, when did you join your first band? And was that One Bad Son, or was it?
No, it was a different band, and it was like some high school friends, and we, you know, basically I started playing grade 12, like I said, sucked for the first 2 years. We started playing live shows right towards the end of my sucking, so that was good. You know, I started to be good before we hit the stage, which is always a good idea for.
That's a good idea.
Stay in your basement until you stop sucking is the advice I would give. And so like started, and we were quite big in our home city here, just playing all the university kids. Like we were like sort of first year university, and you know, it was like the band was very much influenced by like Chili Peppers and Sublime and that sort of thing, and Pearl Jam, and I mean, and then you start touring, which One Bad Son started 2004.
Okay.
And you know, just you learn so much by just touring your ass off. You know, we played every city in this country at least a dozen times, you know, and there's a lot of cities in this country, you know, and a lot of road between them, which is probably the biggest challenge, you know. And that's, you really, like, that's where I got my chops, was playing live like crazy, and then learning the journey's never ended. Like I'm still putting on the headphones and playing along, and now just the records are more complex in terms of the drumming, right? Like, you know, I'll put on Rush once in a while if I want to be humbled, you know.
Right, absolutely. That's great. And with One Bad Son, did you do any touring in the US, or did you just kind of focus on Canada? And
yeah, we toured like Canada like crazy, and then in 2018, so just like, well, it'd be less than 2 years ago now, we did a big US tour with Sebastian Bach from Skid Row.
Oh wow.
And so we did like 2 months of dates, like 40 dates or something.
Wow.
We saw pretty much all of the US, which was a real treat. Just to, you know, I traveled on the West Coast a lot just back when I lived in Vancouver, but I hadn't really seen places like, you know, Nashville, Texas. We did like 5 dates in Texas. That was cool.
Yeah.
You know, just all the cool different, I mean, there's so many different types of cities in America. So it was a real eye opener. And Sebastian, of course, had a bus, and we were, you know, what we're getting paid as an opening act didn't justify a bus. So we were doing a van and trailer. And so we just like it was just like a typical, you know, touring schedule where you get like 3 hours of sleep a night and drive all morning or all night. And, you know, it was hard, but it was also just really rewarding. And
yeah, that sounds fun. I mean, you know, it's, yeah, I think that makes you grow as a band as well. Just being in that situation, you know, being able to be in that close quarters, it's tough, but I think it's a necessary thing, you know. I think people learn from that a lot.
Yeah, big time.
You know, that's awesome, mate. That's fantastic. So what have you got on the horizon, whether it's with the law firm or just performing yourself? I mean, I know where we're at right now is a tricky situation. So, but what have you got coming up?
Well, I'm doing some cool stuff. Like, I was reached out by someone through my website again. Like I get so many emails every day.
That's great.
But so I'm working on this cool project. It's just worth mentioning because it's just such a great cause, and I'm doing it all pro bono because the cause is something I believe in so much. So it's this label called Die Jim Crow Records, and it's based in the U.S., based in New York City, and they release music of incarcerated musicians.
Oh wow!
So people that or previously incarcerated too. Sometimes some of the, you know, got out and did their time, and, you know, and are recording music now, and it's just pretty amazing. I mean, America, obviously, I won't get into it too much, but there's a huge incarceration problem, right? I mean, it's big industry, right? And
yeah,
giving these people who are typically voiceless when it comes to society, giving them a voice, and the music is just so powerful. And yeah, so, and also, I mean, especially in light of, you know, the George Floyd murder and all this stuff, I mean, majority of these musicians are Black musicians, and just giving a voice to the voiceless is just such a gift. And I've put a lot of time in on the pro bono side to have this record deal in place between the label and these musicians.
Brilliant.
And it's like super artist friendly, but you also have to figure out, like, hey, if money comes in and the person's in jail, like, where does that money, you know, like, there's all these logistics, right? So yeah, I mean, check them out. Die Jim Crow Records. It's like, the music is amazing, and it's, yeah, I just think it's, what a special project to be involved in.
That's fantastic. No, that's super nice, man. It's nice to hear that people are, you know, they're getting the inspiration to write this, and then there's people like you who are willing to help them, which is fantastic. So
yeah, it's kind of cool, man.
That's awesome. Now, with your law firm, is it mainly just music that you deal with, or do you deal with other types of law as well? Yeah, I mean, it's all entertainment. So, but music is what I know most because, again, I've been a musician all my life, and so everyone in Canada in the music biz knows of me, right? Like, and I know of them because it's a fairly small community. So that's cool, and I don't take that for granted for a second. I mean, yeah, you know, like, I spent a lot of years in this industry in Canada, so I know it quite well.
but then you get like sort of the things that are connected, like film and TV, or I get authors that are, write a great book and they need to help, they need help on the contract side or whatever. Same with like actors and models and that sort of thing. So, but it's all entertainment. Like I'm not a regular lawyer, like
Yeah.
I never wanted to be. I mean, you can't have rock and roll hair and be a regular lawyer, right? So, it's all people in the entertainment biz, and yeah, I mean, like what I love most is that it's people that are chasing their dreams or living their dreams, and I get to be a part of that, and I get to help them make that a reality, right? Which, what a gift, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So before we kind of close out here, let's give me a few of your favorite records, the ones that got you kind of, I mean, you mentioned a few before, but the ones that kind of were like, yeah, that's what I want to do,
Yeah. Well, again, they probably are the ones that I started playing to. I mean, Ziggy Stardust from David Bowie. I mean, I just love that record, and the drums are sort of like easy enough that you can pick it up at a young age or early in your development. And then stuff like Led Zeppelin 3, Led Zeppelin 4. I mean, those are killer records to learn from.
Yeah.
The Who Live at Leeds, it's a live record, so some people are like, "Hey, that's not a real record." Well, too bad. To me, it's a record, and live at Leeds, like I still listen to that, and I mean, not just Keith. I mean, what Keith Moon does on the record, it's mind-boggling. But also like what Otwell's doing on the bass, and what Pete's doing on the guitar, and and the that'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, the Who was probably like for the longest time it was like my number one band, with Zeppelin being a close second. But I've got Zeppelin tattoos. I don't have Who tattoos, so
right.
So the jury's out on which one is number one. But those records are great, and then all the stuff from the '90s. I mean, Pearl Jam again. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be a musician. I wouldn't be a long-haired entertainment lawyer if I hadn't discovered rock and roll. And my rock and roll sort of gateway drug was Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
So Pearl Jam. I mean, any of their first 5 albums, I could probably play note for note and sing out of key note for note. And then stuff, yeah. I mean, Matt Cameron from Soundgarden and now Pearl Jam. But those Soundgarden records like Super Unknown and Bad Motorfinger. I mean, Matt Cameron's drumming, like it's just like to me, he's like my favorite modern drummer.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean,
I mean, those are some great records right there. You've just nailed it. Yeah.
How about you, Carl? What are some of yours?
Oh wow! I mean, I grew up. So I didn't start playing until I was like 12, and it was mid-90s. So I was, in the UK, it was all Oasis, and the first song that I wanted to play to was "Don't Look Back in Anger" by Oasis.
Great tune, yeah,
great tune. And I had a drum teacher, and I remember I'd heard the song, didn't really know who it was, but I was like, it was about an hour before my drum lesson, and I was like, oh, I hope it comes on the radio so I can play it to my drum teacher. And it did in that hour before my lesson. So I recorded it, and I was like, this is the song I want to play. And that was kind of the first thing that I remember playing to or wanting to play to. But I was I loved like Michael Jackson. I'm a big disco fan. It's as weird as it is, but I love all that. It's not really a guilty pleasure. It's just, I'll quite openly admit it. Yeah. And then just things like Stevie Wonder. I kind of went down that funk and soul route, but everything like Pearl Jam. I remember I had a basketball video, and Pearl Jam, I can't remember what the song was now. Pearl Jam had a great song, and it was basically this whole basketball video was Pearl Jam, and that was me just in the Pearl Jam kind of world. Chili Peppers, of course. And I have to admit, I didn't really go down, Dead Levy's probably not going to like this, I didn't really go down the Led Zeppelin route for a long time. I did love Mitch Mitchell, was one of my favorite drummers.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that I love about Mitch Mitchell was how loose it feels, but it's like uber tight, and it just feels raw, and and that was my thing. I the same type of thing. I would just put on the radio, put on a record, and just play. Practicing on my own on a pad just sends me insane. It's not for me. So just putting a
Yeah,
record on and just playing along. You know, it's
yeah,
all about playing with people. You know, music. So
yeah. I'm the same way. I mean, practicing paradiddles, I was too bored to do that when I was a kid, and I'm sure I could probably benefit from doing more of that. But to me, yeah, put on Are You Experienced and play with Mitch Mitchell. Like, I mean,
oh,
what a genius, you know?
yeah.
And
I
yeah,
mean, it's hard to play along to, but it's just it's kind of freeing because you kind of can do what you want a little bit and jump into where he's at. But yeah, it's crazy, crazy. But yeah, that was mine. And you know, a lot of my friends were into electronic music, so I kind of did like a bit of a.
sorry,
I think we're about to get
back.
shot any second. um, but yeah, so I was into it. There was a bit of electronic music, a bit of the crossover stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's just nice to play drums loud with people and music. So
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Which I mean, I know we all can't wait to get back to doing that because there's nothing that can replicate the live
absolutely not.
experience, right? And it's I can't wait to get back.
Yeah. Do you have any? So one question I've been asking everyone: do you have one or two pieces of gear, whether it's drum related or not drum related, that you can't do without on the road?
That's a good question. I mean, I have this big custom amazing drum kit that like it's sort of my trademark, you know. So it's a small company here in Canada called YC Drums.
Okay.
Stands for Young Classics, and you know, just a massive 26-inch kick drum, big 14, 16, 18 toms, and
Wow.
so I mean the kit. But then, and this is not just a plug for Istanbul Cymbals, but you know, like really, like I've had this sort of, dare I say, you know, sort of trademark sound, or at least I have my sound, which you know,
Yeah.
I've had it for, you know, a decade probably, and it's sort of that combination of Bonham and Keith Moon, big 70s, but bringing it into the modern rock world. So the big washy cymbals from Istanbul, like they're key. I don't have any crash cymbals. They're all ride cymbals.
They're all right.
They're all like they can't fit. They can't fit on the screen. You know, they're all huge, and people are like, anytime we set up at a show, you know, whether it be Sebastian Bach's drummer or, you know, the Rolling Stones crew, whatever, they're like, holy shit, those are massive cymbals. Those are massive drums. You know, and I'm like, yeah, it's just people always notice it. So, I mean, it's
Right.
as a drummer, it's sort of predictable to say I can't live without my drums and my cymbals, but it's really just like, yeah, the trademark sound. And anytime I play on, like if we fly in for a show for a festival, I have to play on a rented kit, of course.
Yeah.
And sometimes rented cymbals, but I usually bring the cymbals with me. But it just doesn't have the same feel. It doesn't have that. It doesn't feel like Kurt Dahl's sound, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
No,
it's
I totally get that, especially with cymbals. Whenever I travel, you know, we have backline throughout the world, but if it's just a quick fly in, fly out, it's just easy to bring your cymbals because I think that's something that they respond in such a different way to drums. You know, drums, yes, you can hit them and they sound, and you can say the same for cymbals, but you know, I think they feel different. Every cymbal feels different, and it is a sound. You know, it's definitely a sound. But that's cool. Do you have anything that you have to have on the road with you for your legal thing?
you know, my laptop. What's that?
Just your laptop?
Yeah, my laptop is my office, and that's the cool thing. Like, I haven't worked in an office for 7 or 8 years now. So,
Brilliant.
like my laptop I got my music on there. I got my legal practice, and so like as you know, when you're on tour, there's so much downtime, right? Like you'll have hours, and that's why some people get into a lot of trouble is all the downtime, you know. And I've been lucky that if I've got 3 hours of downtime, or we're driving 6 hours or 16 hours.
Yeah.
I'm working away, drafting deals, negotiating deals for my clients, whatever, right? So, yeah, my laptop. And then I bring my yoga mat because as a drummer, I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but as you get older, drumming's hard on your body, you know? And so
absolutely.
I do a ton of yoga to keep it all sort of on the straight and narrow, you know?
We should start a drumming yoga group because another artist of ours, Jaden Bean, is a huge yogi, and he loves to meditate. And he swears by it, especially on the road. You know, it's the thing that keeps him, you know, healthy. You know, and just keeps him moving because it's a physical job. It's a very physical job. You know, being a drummer, and as you say, it's just you can't. You know, you just get older and you crunch over and you start to just shrivel off.
Well, and physical for sure, and mental too. I mean, I think being not just driving, but like being on the road is tough mentally and physically. And I think that again, that's where you see people get into bad stuff, whether it be booze, drugs, or just negative. They get in a negative headspace, and
absolutely.
It's like when you've toured as long as we have, you start to see there's sort of like two different types of touring musicians: those that have really unhealthy habits, and those that have really healthy ones. And you make whatever find the healthy habits and make them a ritual. Because I've just seen too many good friends just go down the negative road, right? And some of them are no longer with us. It's like that's just the realities of being a touring musician. It's not predictable. It's not normal. Everything is just like one big unknown, which I think can drive people crazy. So I don't meditate as much as I should, but I mean, my yoga is sort of like I get a bit of those benefits from just focusing on the practice and not worrying about the 1,000 things that you could be doing at any one moment as a musician. I think that would be cool. Starting a
we'll start drumming yoga group. Yeah,
I love it.
Well, I think we're going to have to kind of quickly end this because we're almost about to get kicked off here. I think there's a time limit. So is there any lasting thoughts that you want to just say to anybody about any advice, or just, I want to thank you very much for being on today. I think it's been great to actually connect.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Somewhat, and we'll stay in touch much more, I think, after this. So
if
there's any advice and a closing thought, that would be awesome.
Well, it's an honor. It's great to meet you and connect. And as far as big advice, reach out if you have questions. Especially if you have questions on the legal side or on the touring side, whatever. I mean, but just go to lawyerdrummer.com and you can just have all these articles there. Like I write them to help out other musicians because there is like some sharks or some snakes out there in the music biz who will try to take advantage of you and your career, right? So if I can be like one more thing that just makes it easier for you to achieve your dreams, then awesome. So reach out, go to my website, go on Instagram, Lawyer Drummer. Just reach out with questions. I'm happy to answer them. I think a lot of people think that if they ask a lawyer a question or that they're going to get billed or something, and I mean, not me, maybe most other lawyers, but reach out, ask the question. If I can't answer it, I'll at least tell you that I can't,
Otherwise, it's a fantastic resource you have there. So definitely check it out. It's
thank you.
It's fantastic. I was blown away when I finally got to it the other day. It's brilliant. So
thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Kurt. It's been a pleasure and an honor to speak to you. Everybody, if you've got any more questions, feel free to reach out to the Lawyer Drummer here. I think is that your tag? Lawyer Drummer?
Yeah.
Lawyer Drummer, and ask questions, go to his website. And thank you very much. Next week, we actually have Rick Latham, who's going to be in and doing a bit of a chat. But thank you, Kurt. It's been wonderful, and enjoy the rest of your day with your family, and I'll speak to you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
See you lot. Thanks, guys. It's been great to see you all in here. Thank you for joining in. Again, if you need to get in touch with Kurt, it's just the Lawyer Drummer, and lawyerdrummer.com. His website is a great resource, and like I said, we have Rick Latham coming in next week. So I'll see you all then. Thank you very much.